Rick Sanchez.
Welcome back. I'm Rick Sanchez, filling in for Campbell Brown. It's only 90 miles from the United States, but it's enemy territory. Has been for about 50 years now. Is that finally about to change? Yesterday, the Treasury Department formally lifted nearly all restrictions on family travel to Cuba. Americans can now visit their relatives on the island. If you'll allow me for just a moment, I want to share something a little bit personal with you from me. I'm an American who was born in Cuba. And let me tell you, this is a very sensitive issue for us, for my parents, and for the community where I grew up. My mom and dad, they still will not go back to Cuba until they feel like it's a free country, till it's not communist, even if it means that they're not able to see their own family and have to make that sacrifice. That's what they thought when they left. That's what they think now. All right, now I want you to meet somebody who disagrees with my parents. My next guest took the first flight from LAX, Los Angeles, back to Havana in June. Take a look at this.
Tensions mount at Havana's International Airport. Finally, Continental Flight 1923 taxis in. The first direct flight from Los Angeles in 5 years. Cuban Americans can now travel back to the island freely. Gabrielle and Kendall Eborall have never been to Cuba.
I'm going to visit my mother's family, my uncles. I have like 4 uncles here, lots of cousins we've never met, people we've never met, and I'm just excited to be able to come with my daughter and share this experience. I've been wanting to come my whole life.
Washington eliminated restrictions on Cuban Americans visiting their relatives and also broadened the definition of family.
That's my uncle. My mother, I haven't seen him ever. I've never met him.
Oh my God, to see you in tears. Gabby Eborall is good enough to join us now. Gabby, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you, Rick?
What's it like? Explain to the viewers. I think I can share in part of this experience, but I want you, in your words, to tell them what it's like to go to a strange and somewhat forbidden place to see your own relatives.
It's hard to describe. You know, it was very fulfilling for me personally to be able to visit my mom's homeland that she's talked about for so many years, through my whole life. So it was just a beautiful time for me to be able to share that with my daughter,
but what was
Kendall,
it like to,
and my mom.
What was it like to walk down the streets of Cuba knowing that to a certain extent you'd been taught all your life that you were kind of in enemy territory and that you'd heard from your parents really bad things about the Castro regime, for example?
Actually, that didn't happen in my home. I wasn't taught, my mother didn't talk about politics too much in the house. She talked about the good times that she had with her family. You know, Castro it was kind of whispered. It wasn't really talked about much in our home.
Well, let me tell you what's not whispered. There are people probably in South Florida, some of them living in parts of New Jersey and scattered all over the country, who say that we shouldn't do anything with Fidel Castro because he's a communist, and there are people in political prisons to this day who are suffering. What do you say to those folks when you explain to them that you felt the need and you are free and the law now says you can go to Cuba and visit your relatives?
I say that for me personally, I go to Cuba, or I went to Cuba to see family that I had never seen before, and I can't speak to that because I just basically had no concept of it. My personal goal was to just visit and be with family.
Well, let me give you a little concept, because some people would argue, though, that, Gabby, you should have a sense of what's going on, that you owe it to those people who are being in prison to understand, if nothing else, their plight before you make your decision. Let me introduce you to somebody. This guy's become very famous. He's a political prisoner in Cuba now. His name is Pamphilo. His video has gone viral. All he wanted to do was go on tape one day and say that he was hungry. It's interesting. I'll take you through this. Go ahead and play it, Renee. Hama means eat. So a reporter's doing an interview with that guy you see right there in the hat, and the guy tries to ask him serious questions, right? This guy jumps in and he starts saying, you know what it's all about here? The problem here in Cuba is Hama. There's no food. There's no food. Okay, innocent enough. Maybe he'd had a couple too many drinks. He's in prison. That guy's he's put in prison for saying that. It would bother most people. Does that bother you? And is that the kind of thing that we should try and get the folks in Cuba politically to stop doing before we commit to sending people there?
I don't know the circumstances of at that particular moment, what was going on. That was could have been anybody on the streets that I saw in Havana. You can see crazy people saying crazy things in LA. Will they get imprisoned for it? No. That's a communist country. That's the rules. I mean, it is what it is, and there's nothing I personally can do about that. I went to go see family. My family had plenty of food. They fed us what they had. We caught fish ourselves and made it that day, so that was my Cuban experience.
And it's a good thing that people have an opportunity to share these things. And Gabby, we thank you. We thank you for coming on and sharing your experience, and we're going to continue to do this because this is a story that really hits close to home to many South Floridians. Take care.
Thank you, and thank you.
Be
thank
good.
You so much.
Be good. And thanks for sharing part of your story with us.
And thanks to Cuba Travel Services for getting me there from LAX.
There you have it. Cuba Travel Services. Meanwhile, parents pulling their kids out of school.